have this one of those things. When things get too heavy, just call me helium.
Now, back to Sports 56 Happy Hour on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour is brought to you by Tito's Vodka. Here once again, Johnny Radio.
Welcome back to Little Sports 56 Happy Hour. I'm your buddy Johnny Radio. It is a Thirsty Thursday, and it's always brought to you by the best, and that's Tito's Handmade Vodka. Speaking of the best, and your number one source for all things Ole Miss, that would be the rebelwalk.com, the founder, the publisher, and the sweetest person in the whole world, the great Evie Van Pelt. She joins us now. Evie, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Had a great signing day yesterday for Ole Miss with a little bit of drama there, but I'm doing great otherwise. Thanks for having me.
And I haven't asked you in a while. Everything, you back to normal? You rolling and you down there rolling?
I am. I'm rolling like a son of a gun.
No pain.
No pain.
No pain. Yes.
No pain. Yes.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Now, the first thing I have to bring up to you, I'm so happy for you and David, and I just love you all to death. It's the holiday season. I'm in a great mood. But there is a little bit of heartbreak and disappointment and reflection and kind of look back at what this class, this team, this schedule they had. I mean, if you told me that they were going to drop Georgia and South Carolina on the road before the season, I would have said, "Oh, damn, they in." But we lost a Florida team that was totally different from the very beginning of the year. DJ Lagway, was playing extremely well. The Kentucky one, still stings, and it's college football. But Lane Kiffin went out there and put it all out on the line on the X yesterday. I absolutely love it. I'm just kind of curious what everybody over the Rebel Walk thinks.
Well, I tell you what, we agree with Lane, and I thought one of the things for folks, I'm sure everybody knows, but Lane has really taken issue with a lot of what's going on with the CFP rankings, and of course the Rebels in at number 13 right now, and Miami ahead of them, Alabama at 11, and South Carolina at 14. And Lane did a lot of lobbying, I thought, before the rankings came out. Basically talking about South Carolina, I think, and who knows? I mean, that really went out there and kind of went viral, that we beat them head to head, and why would they possibly jump us? Right. And he said, we whipped them, and he said, if we were playing, we're probably still scoring touchdowns on them. And so I thought that was kind of funny. He told us that in his Sunday night little Zoom with local media, and just said, if that were to happen, why do we even play the games if you beat somebody head to head? So that didn't happen. They didn't jump Ole Miss. However, I think he takes issue with some of the teams that are ahead of Ole Miss and some of the teams with obviously weaker, schedules. And he just says, week in, week out in the SEC, much less going on the road to some of these SEC venues, all these SEC venues. I mean, South Carolina is a tough place to play. There's really not a tough place to play in the SEC, and especially at night. And so he commented yesterday in our signing day press conference. He didn't want to get into it. He wanted to focus on the players, but somebody, kind of pressed him a little bit, and he just said, somebody gave me a list of the people on the committee, and he said, I want to know if any of them have ever been down south to a game in one of these SEC stadiums at night. And he's really talked a lot about that. And I think, Rebels everywhere just going, heck yeah.
I think one of my favorite things, though, is when he was commenting on to somebody out there on Twitter who said, like, best wins for Miami was like Louisville and Duke, and then Ole Miss is Georgia, South Carolina. Double-digit wins, Miami 7, Ole Miss 9. Average scoring margin, Ole Miss plus 24, Miami plus 17. Wins handed by replay officials, Miami 2, Ole Miss 0. Because Miami really should have 4 losses. I mean, let's be real. That Cal comeback was BS. They got bailed out twice by the officials. And then Lane quote tweeted the guy and said, you guys actually meet for days and come up with these rankings? Does the college football playoff actually watch football, the quality of players, the teams, the road environment? And he just went on and on and on. I was like, damn, go get him, Lane.
And his thing he's been saying, too, is spot the ball. like, just tell us where to play, and we'll go up against anybody. And so I saw an ACC Barstool account, tweeted him and said, the ACC is undefeated 2-0 against teams you lost to, blah, blah, blah. And then Kiffin wrote back, and that's what he tweeted, blah, 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 spot the ball anywhere, and then put the graphic of the scores, Ole Miss 43-24 over Louisville, 42-0 over Georgia Tech, 48-23 over Georgia Tech in 2023. So, I mean, he posted all these, scores, but it just made me laugh, the blah, blah, blah. So he definitely has some points. And, he told us when we went to the 12-team playoff, he said, rather prophetically, the people right there on the edge left out, number 13, number 12, whatever, are going to be upset. And so here we go. But I thought it was interesting. He actually quote tweeted the Rebel Walk this morning where we had
Lane.
said, "Yay, go Lane," and put hashtag come to the SIP because, he's just talking about this is kind of a segue, I guess, into recruiting, but this is the best class, the ones they signed yesterday. Of course, there's still a couple of more we're going to wait on to see this week if they might commit to Ole Miss. One of them has a signing day today, Connor Howes, who has been in Arkansas, commit, but there's a lot of talk he may flip that to Ole Miss.
Speaking of flipping, I got a question for you.
Oh yeah.
What about the whole Tyler Lockhart saga that went down yesterday?
Goodness. Okay. Well, the first thing I was struck by is Tyler Lockhart at his commitment ceremony, and you've probably seen the video or photos of it after he has taken off his jacket and, he's got the Ole Miss shirt underneath, and his parents look so mad and upset, and I just thought, come on, people. I mean, I had a daughter that committed to play volleyball at Ole Miss. And that's just like the best day of your life when your child, I mean, I graduated from A&M. I didn't care where she was signing. I was excited she was signing somewhere, and that she was happy. So that really struck me as a parent, just how hard that had to be on that kid, that there are these parents there that, again, I can't really get into their head and say what they were thinking, but they surely looked like they were not pleased. And so the next thing we know,
everybody I think could tell that they weren't happy. I mean,
right. I mean, it just, yeah. So it's you don't have to be a psychologist, I guess, to see that. But so he commits to Ole Miss, and now I was updating. We had a signing day headquarters, so I'm updating our list just as soon as we get the word from Ole Miss. So even when the kid commits, and if I see a commit with my own eyes, I don't post it until Ole Miss officially posts it, because we've had just weird things happen. Well, Ole Miss finally posted Lockhart on the signing day commits, put out the graphics. So I'm like, okay, we're good to go. So we add him to the list. We release our info. And then about 8 o'clock last night, things got weird. And we started, we saw, well, at one point, Jeff Lebby tweets, the guy sitting up out of the coffin, like we're not dead. He tweets that, and we're like, uh-oh, what's going on? And then later State released a tweet, basically saying Lockhart is a Bulldog. So all I can say is...
Dog or a rebel.
That's right. And I tell you, and now, as of right now, as we're talking on Thursday at 12:15, he is on the Mississippi State roster. Ole Miss removed him from the signing day list. I can tell you...
God, his mom and dad went home and beat him, didn't they?
Well, and here's the thing. He has a brother that is on the Mississippi State football team, and I think that
they want their brothers to play together.
I think that, but, and I don't want to impugn anybody here, but I would imagine there was pressure from Mississippi State. The brother, I don't think, is the level, at the level of this 4-star, younger brother. So I think there might have been some pressure. I'm not going to say they threatened to pull his scholarship or anything, but stranger things have happened. This whole thing is just very weird. Recruiting gets weird, especially nowadays. But the one thing I can tell you, and then after all that, then the kid who, even when all that was going on, he still had his Ole Miss commitment thing graphic up on his Twitter. And then finally later he tweeted, my bad, with the little laughing and crying. I know, and I'm like, to me, the my bad, I'd rather him just issue a statement and just kind of come clean and say, here's what happened. I mean, there was talk that Mama refused to sign the papers. But then, I know the Ole Miss folks, and I know how on top of compliance and all sorts of things they are, because they have to be, because let's face it, the NCAA, camped out in Oxford for I don't know how long. So I just think, back in the freeze days. So I just think Ole Miss dots their I's and crosses their T's. And there was talk that, Ole Miss didn't get the signature from Mama. Well, Ole Miss isn't posting anything unless they have, what they think they need. So, I don't know, and a kid's 17 at the end of the day, he can't do anything without parents' legal, signature. So I don't know there, but I tell you what, I think the difference, this is what is so interesting to me, is the difference in where Ole Miss is now compared to where they were when Lane got there. Because I tell you what, 5 years ago, Ole Miss fans would have been melting down. I mean, understandably so, and I would have too, if we would have lost a 4-star linebacker. Oh, yeah. But now I feel like Mississippi State is so irrelevant in the state of Mississippi right now. This is their big win. They're not winning the Egg Bowl. They're not winning, what are they, 2-10 or whatever, they're not winning on the field. And so they got a little win yesterday. I feel like
he might be a rebel here once his brother graduates from Mississippi State and's done with his football career.
I absolutely agree. And, so to me, I feel like, State got that, but, the poor kids now got to go play for a 2-10 team. And Ole Miss, I feel like Lane, I'm going to tell you, yesterday at Lane's press conference, Lane seemed locked in to me. I'm telling you, Lane is locked in. And if any behind-the-scenes shenanigans did go on, which I'm not saying they did, with the Lockhart situation, I think Lane is going to be all over that, and State and Jeff Lebby will be in Lane Kiffin's sights. And I don't know that you want to be there, because look at what happened to Jimbo. I think that's not where you want to be. But anyway, Lane just seems so locked into me. And he even said, talking about the in-state kids, because, let's not forget, Ole Miss did sign Caleb Cunningham, the number one recruit in the
Is he the number 2 wide receiver in the country?
In the entire country.
By the way, I got a question real quick, because I just thought about this. Austin Simmons, I'm already looking at the future right now. Lane already signed him a wide receiving class. He loaded up yesterday, so he's got some guns for Austin Simmons.
Yes, he does. You're absolutely right. And so I think that, he ended up signing a 5-star and 3 4-stars. And, to me, that's, good grief. We hadn't seen that kind of level in a while. And I'm really glad. So he did get Winston Watkins, who, had not been a verbal commit. So that was fantastic that we got him. And, so definitely the wide receiving core is there for Austin Simmons. If I'm Austin Simmons,
I'm not leaving.
I'm not going anywhere. And Dylan Alfred, we got him. He was another 4-star from Mississippi. And and Samari Reed, another 4-star. So if I am him, I am looking at those guys. I'm looking at, Caden Lee coming back. We've still got Aiden Williams on the roster. And he's a fantastic wide receiver who just, hadn't, with the depth that Ole Miss had, ahead of him, just hadn't had a chance to get in. But he's fantastic also. So definitely, I'm with you. I think the future is bright. I'm bummed by the playoff situation.
Yeah,
I think
it's
Ole
kind of
Miss
hard.
is.
It's going to sting for a while.
It is, and I mean, Ole Miss. You will never convince me that they are not one of the top 12 teams in college football. And definitely. I mean, you go back to that Kentucky loss. I do too. That's going to haunt
That
all of
miracle
us.
play on fourth down where he just threw the ball down the field. And
Yes.
little man, oh man, I still can't believe it.
I can't either. And I just wish, folks could, some of the folks at other schools who are throwing that, well, you lost to Kentucky. Well, at the time, you're right. I mean, they weren't, it's not like they obviously didn't end up being a great team, but remember, they played Georgia to 1 point. They lost to Georgia by 1. And then, like you mentioned, talking about Florida, that loss, they are a completely different team with DJ Lagway at the helm of that team. And I think some other teams, had they played them with DJ Lagway, it might have been a little bit different. But it's frustrating. And, another interesting thing Lane said yesterday is fans may have to get used to the idea that going forward with all this parity that is in football now and money and NIL and transfers every year, you may have to get more used to 3-loss SEC teams and 3-loss SEC teams being in, the playoffs or in a title game or whatever, especially, adding Oklahoma and Texas into the mix also. So Lane just said this is a totally different league. And he said that. He said, and I mean a league. I don't mean a conference. He said, you've got the NFL. You've got the SEC,
I love this.
a couple of Big Ten teams, and then everybody else, and it's like they are in a different league.
It really is, and it's just wild. And again, Jackson Dart had an amazing season. That final drive against Florida, him going up to the podium and owning it. I mean, it was heart wrenching watching that. But he just that was a terrible game. Comes back, takes care of things at Mississippi State, and I heard he just won a trophy.
Yes, he did. He just won the Connerly Trophy for the best collegiate player in the state of Mississippi, and he was there in Flowood. Actually, they had the ceremony there, and Charlie Weiss was there with him, his offensive coordinator. And I just think Jackson, boy, if anybody ever came from someplace far away like the West Coast to the state of Mississippi and adapted and fell in love with it and with the people, it would be Jackson. I mean, I think he wears his heart on his sleeve, and I'm happy to see him get that award. He passed Eli Manning in career total yards at the end of the season, and so that was cool. I mean, can you imagine that? I mean, I passed Eli Manning. I mean, in anything, that's pretty impressive. And so it's going to be interesting, moving forward without him. But David and I were talking about it just yesterday. The mentality, normally when you have a 3-year starter and he's gone, and then you've got a backup that's a younger guy, you're like, well, hopefully he'll work out. We saw Austin Simmons come in against Georgia and literally take over and do so under pressure when Ole Miss was down 7-0. It wasn't like the game was out of reach. It wasn't like, that drive he orchestrated
and
was
the fourth
beautiful.
down he converted.
The fourth down slant. I will not ever get over that. Just tremendous job under pressure. And that's something that, you and I have talked about before that Kiffin has noted. Kiffin has watched Austin pitch in baseball, and he said that kid is built different. He said to be able to go out there on the mound in front of thousands of screaming SEC
years
fans.
Old.
Yeah, he said that's just he's built different. And absolutely, I think we saw that when he came in against Georgia. And, we put that, you and I talked about it last time. We put that interview out with him. And besides, he has the funniest, not funny, weird, but funny. It's just, he has this deep voice for this young guy. And just cool as he can be. Cool as the other side of the pillow. And so really looking
and
forward.
And he's just smart, doesn't do anything bad. I mean, I was down in Oxford last night on a Wednesday night, my daughter's 21st birthday celebration.
Oh, yay.
And the square is absolutely packed and everybody's going like, I mean, I was shocked. I was like, damn, it's Wednesday night and this place is bumping like wall to wall, every bar you went to. It was fun. It was great. But there weren't any football players out. Like Reese came up there, took a couple pictures with Savannah, and then Reese left and went back to Jackson Dart's house. They weren't going out and partying. You didn't see no football players out last night, which was kind of also, a little shocking since their season's over. But he said they were going back to put in some work over at Dart's house, and I was like, damn. All right, I like to hear that.
Well, and it's interesting because Lane talked about that also yesterday about lost in all this should not be the fact that if Ole Miss can win its bowl game, that would put them at 10 wins for the season. And, to have been, 3 out of the last 4 having 10 wins, that's huge. And also, as we talked about before, if they can get to 10 wins this season, that would be back-to-back 10-win seasons, 11 last season. But the first time that's happened since 1959 and 1960 when Johnny Vaught was there. So I just think that that's a huge accomplishment. And so while we're all, some people every now and then have alluded to it, we're all so sick over being so close to the playoffs and this roster and the last dance and all of that. But we also have to keep in mind, we are all mad that we're 9-3, potentially 10-3, and so how quickly the culture has changed. Like Lane said, we didn't come here to be good. We came here to be great.
This ain't Ed Orgeron teams.
No, it's not. And so for the fan base to be upset at a 9-3 season, I mean, that is pretty impressive to me and something to see. And I really am telling you, Lane was locked in yesterday. Lane got a very, very good signing class. And we're not even to the portal yet. So the portal opens next week on the 9th. So, I look for him to, as Coach Yo said, do some damage.
I know Leanne and you are going to be busy from this to all the way to the portal. Plus, you got Chris Beard tearing up basketball. But one other football question. I got to know, like the one thing that stuck out for me when I was at the Egg Bowl, I was like, damn, there's Ulysses Bentley the fourth on the field. And he's running great. I'm like, where was he? Like, in the Florida game, and why have they been hiding him all year?
I tell you, that's the $1 million question, and I know a lot of Rebels think that was the difference, perhaps, between making the playoffs and not. When we saw him break loose in the Egg Bowl for that touchdown, there was a tweet yesterday. You know how they do those? Somebody will take the video and they calculate how fast they're running, and he was at 20.7 miles per hour. He was moving 20.7 miles per hour. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of questions there because, we were told it is not an off the field issue. Kid's got great character, didn't do anything, wasn't in the doghouse. And so that would make you think it's a football reason. Well, those football reasons ran all over Mississippi State. So, I'm with you there. I don't know that we'll ever get the answer to that. Hopefully at some point, some of his folks reached out to us about doing a video interview with our Dalen Flowers, who interviewed Austin Simmons. So if that happens, I will definitely let you know.
Ole Miss basketball and Chris Beard, 23rd in the country right now. Tell me a little bit about basketball. I hadn't even got to pay attention. And, man, y'all are coming to Memphis here in, end of the month, playing the Tigers.
Yes. Yeah, well, I tell you what really sticks out to me. Now they were in California recently and split, 1-1, but at the end of that Purdue game, my goodness, that was a close one. But what really stuck out to me, did you get a chance Tuesday to see him play Louisville? And
oh, yes.
Oh, my goodness, 86-63 win at Louisville. And I just think that was a big win. The Rebels jumped in the net rankings, I think, from 55 all the way up to 27. That was the biggest jump this week in the net rankings. I mean, that is huge. So Chris Beard is got it going on. I don't even know if you saw the tweet, and I think Ole Miss basketball posted it, of Chris Beard in the locker room with him afterwards, and it was basically like, you don't want to, you can't just celebrate one win. I mean, it's a long season, and then he starts dancing and singing with them, and it was really cute, and they were also excited after that Louisville win. So I just think they had a really balanced offensive attack. In the second half of that game, Ole Miss shot 63.3%. That's their best percentage and a half this season. They also, down low, Ole Miss scored a season best 48 points in the paint. Louisville only scored 28. 5 Rebels were in double figures. So, I think let's watch. I say it every year. I tell my daughter, we're going to be great this year in basketball. And she's like, Mom, like, calm down, simmer down. And then the SEC play hits, and then it's kind of rough. But I'm really excited about watching them this season.
And you know what else is also just kind of crazy when you think about it? Like, when they do start SEC play, again, it's kind of like the thing with Lane Kiffin and the football team. I mean, you got Tennessee and Auburn and Florida and Kentucky and Alabama. Like, this SEC basketball season's also locked and loaded.
It really is. David and I were talking about that the other day when Ole Miss was still in the 50s in the net rankings. And we were going through the net rankings. And even though that was in the top 64 in the country, there were like 12 SEC teams ahead of that. So it's like that, 13 SEC teams there, right there. I mean, that was insane. But it's interesting. I'm sure the SEC went 14-2 in the SEC ACC Challenge.
Yeah,
and
there were some beatdowns, and then
there were some
Clemson though nipped Kentucky, which is also another thing because Memphis is playing Clemson too. So like that's the only one thing that I actually kind of like because it helps Clemson look a little bit better.
Right. So the women take on NC State tonight, and the women.
Where is
SEC.
Coach Hill? Are they in Paris? Are they in like Hawaii, south of France?
No, they're not. They are going to be playing the Wolfpack in Raleigh, so they're in Raleigh tonight, and they will tip off, I believe, at 6:00. They're number 18 in the country, 5-2, so they're getting it done. The Wolfpack are number 24, so
that's going to be a nice game.
It's going to be on ESPN2 tonight, so folks can tune into that, and I think Ole Miss is, she's added some good freshmen, got some great transfers, has, of course, Madison Scott and KK Deans, Kennedy Todd Williams returning, and, that's going to be another one. I mean, I think basketball this season, both men and women, will be fun for Ole Miss fans to watch.
So I know you got the rebelwalk.com. It's your number one source for all things Ole Miss sports information. You got Twitter at the Rebel Walk. Follow Evie at Ole Miss Evie. You also got YouTube dropping all over the place. What are y'all doing over at the Rebel Walk right now? What can we go look and find?
Well, I tell you what, keep an eye out. We do have a summary of everybody that signed yesterday on our signing day headquarters page, and folks can read their bios and check out some highlights of each player. We've got interviews. We've been interviewing some of these commits, and so we're going to have articles coming out on them. So keep an eye out on that, just kind of their thoughts and what they were thinking on signing day, arguably the biggest day of a lot of these kids' lives. We'll have coverage of men and women's basketball and maybe even a little volleyball, because Ole Miss women's volleyball are in the NCAA tournament. So that has not happened in quite some time. So that's going to be fun to watch.
I'll tell you one thing. Volleyball has never, ever been popular, but ever since, I guess it was in Nebraska that played in like that huge arena. It seems like now you're, when you're doing a little channel surfing, like they're always showing it on ESPN.
They are, and it was, I think didn't they convert the football stadium into,
that's what
they had a volleyball, and it was packed. Yeah, that was something else. And Nebraska is just a preeminent, team in the nation. And now Ole Miss again has made the NCAA tournament for the first time in quite some time. They play number 7 Florida State today, actually at 4:30. So we will have some coverage on that. I think it's streaming on ESPN Plus. But good job, Bree Henry is the head coach. She's in just her second year there, and so hopefully we'll have a little bit of coverage of that also.
I'm telling you, if you just listen to Evie, you can tell why the Rebel Walk is your number one source for all things Ole Miss sports information. She's on top of it all. Evie, I hope you have some wonderful holidays, some great times. Tell David I said what up. And, man, if you can get to Memphis for that Ole Miss game, we got a spot for you.
Ooh, okay. I think I'm going to work on that. That would be awesome.
Well, you have a blessed day, and I hope I see you when Memphis and Ole Miss go down. That's the great Evie Van Pelt.